Hello there. How's everybody doing? I'm down in the basement here, giving you a little review of my surroundings. This is my workshop. Some of you know I'm a pretty avid woodworker. I described that in my intro video. This is my workshop. Got some awesome tools down here, like a bandsaw and an air compressor and a variety of tools. And there's the beast, the big table saw, and a planer and a chop box and various things over here. Some projects that I'm working on. These are brackets for a shelf unit. Those are the brackets. There's the shelves. They're beautiful cherry. And here's a project my daughter and I are working on. So I'm down here getting ready to tell you a little bit about negative reinforcement. So I'm going to try to clear up any confusion about negative reinforcement. One of the most misunderstood concepts in learning behavior, and hopefully this will remove any confusion you have. So negative reinforcement describes a situation where the removal, postponement, delay, or prevention of some event makes that the behavior that produces that removal, or prevention, or escape, or postponement more likely in similar situations. So I want to illustrate some instances of negative reinforcement, not arranged by anyone, but just present in the world. And I'm going to be putting on an Oscar-worthy performance, and then I'll talk about it. So here's the scenes. I'll be demonstrating how to sand a piece of wood. So I got some Band of Horses on. I got my Band of Horses t-shirt. Wait a minute, this isn't Band of Horses. That was Lady Gaga. I don't know where that came from. I have no idea where that song came from. Why is that song on my playlist? This is much better. Okay, so I'm ready to go. How about you? Alright, I'll be back in a second and we'll talk about this. Negative reinforcement, take 3. Action! Hello! Today I'm going to show you how to sand a piece of wood properly. What you need for this is a piece of wood that needs sanding. You need a piece of sandpaper and the sanding block. This is just a little old piece of wood that I like to use for a sanding block. Then you need a place to do the sanding. Alright, let me just remove these items so that I have a workspace. There we go, much better, much better. Now that we have a workspace, we can go ahead and start to sand. It's still a mess. There's all this sawdust, so why don't we get rid of some of it, but now it's on the floor. Is there a way that I could remove the sawdust without... Oh! I have a vacuum cleaner. Yes! Boy, that vacuum cleaner is loud. I don't know if you can hear me. I hope you can see me, but this is really a loud thing. It like almost hurts my ears. I wonder if I can eliminate sound somehow. Oh! Yes! I can eliminate the sound by putting on some earbuds. I'll be right back. Perfect! Can you hear me okay now? Is it okay? Am I? Oh, sorry about that. Sorry. Okay. Now I have my piece of wood that requires sanding. Let's talk about what we got to do. First of all, we got to sand. We're going to sand with the grain. You can see if you look closely, the grain goes this way, so we want to sand in this direction we don't want to sand in this direction. That would be across the grain. We want to sand backwards and forwards. So what I'm going to do is just take my trusty little block of wood here and my piece of sandpaper, and I'll get it, well, get it sanding. If only this would stay on the. Is there a way I could prevent the board from moving? Oh! Got a clamp! I will clamp the board, and therefore it doesn't move. So, now we can do a little bit of sanding. Remember, we want to go with the grain. We don't want to go against the grain. We want to go with the grain. And periodically, what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're removing the material that you're producing. So you want to, oh! Oh! Ugh! Oh! Got a huge splinter. A huge splinter. So let me get that out of here. Just going to come in here. I don't know if you can see that splinter. I'm just going to pull it right out. Oh, there we go. Ooh, much better. Much better. Better. Why do I think that I could not get splinters? Is there a way that I could not get splinters? Is there a way that I could prevent getting splinters? Right. If I put gloves on while I'm working, I prevent getting splinters. Whoa. All right. So now we got our gloves, now we got our clamp, now we got our sawdust, and we're ready to go. We're doing our sanding. Again, you need to periodically clean off the material. My Band of Horses shirt! It's ruined! Maybe I can remove the dust and it'll be okay. Maybe it's okay. Why don't I put on a work shirt? You know, an old shirt that's already got paint on it and all dirty and stuff like that. But I don't ruin my good Band of Horses shirts. Why did I think of that before? All right, got my work shirt on. Got my my Band of Horses shirt is now protected. We can get back to our sanding. And again, as I said, as you're sanding, you're going to be removing material, creating some sawdust. So you got to periodically get down there. What the heck is this? We got to get that out of the way. We got to get down there and check it out and see what's. Oh! Dust in the eye. Oh, that hurts. That hurts. It's like little needles in my eyes. I got it. All right, got that dust out. Whew. Ah, much better. Much better. I don't know about you, but there's nothing like dust in the eye. So how can I need to brush it off. I need to look oh. I know how I can prevent dust in my eye. There we go. Yeah, that would be perfect. So, now, I got my sanding block. I got my board, I got my glasses, I got my work shirt, I got my gloves. I'm good to go. This is how you properly sand a board. Thank you very much. Okay, so what did you think of that little presentation? It was Oscar-worthy, wasn't it? Yes? Do I hear applause in the audience? Okay, well, maybe it was a little cheesy, but hopefully you saw some instances of negative reinforcement. We can talk about them a little bit, and I'll try to be explicit about them. So let me start by saying that, I have something on the board here that's not relevant to learning and conditioning. It's relevant maybe to statistics, but I need to get it out of the way. I need to remove it. So, sorry to be so explicit about what negative reinforcement is, but negative reinforcement, your book says, is behavior increases, reinforcement. Behavior increases because it produces the removal of some stimulus. Okay? Now, if we define negative reinforcement this way, then we're merely defining it, though, in one, it's applicable only really to one situation then. And removal is what we traditionally have called escape. Okay, there's something present, you perform some behavior, and you remove that thing, okay? I had dust on my Band of Horses shirt, and I brushed it off. Brushing is reinforced by the removal of the dust. Okay? Now, we need to expand this definition, though. And this definition is fine, but we have the problem of how do we deal with this second part of this, which is avoidance. Okay? And that is, when I put my work shirt over it, I was preventing, okay, the dust from, impacting my Band of Horses shirt, ruining my Band of Horses shirt. Okay, so how can we explain avoidance? Okay, now two-factor theory says that actually what's happening is there's a Pavlovian condition fear response that by acting on that I prevent the fear, and that's what reinforces the behavior of avoidance, and you need two factors. And frankly, I just don't buy it. What I would much rather do is expand this definition to include not only removal but postponement. Avoidance, we could even call it prevention, and so on and so forth. Those sorts of factors also are negatively reinforced occurrences in instances. So, what you saw in that video was you saw traditionally what we would call instances of avoidance and instances of escape, right? So one of the first things I said was that I hoped that this video would remove confusion about negative reinforcement. And that might sound like negative reinforcement in and of itself, and that might be true. I just removed the writing on this board in order to present this other lecture information. So that's an instance of negative reinforcement. It's an instance of escaping from those other words that were irrelevant. Now, sometimes people say negative reinforcement has to involve aversive things or bad things or painful things, but the writing on the board wasn't painful to me. It wasn't aversive. It was just kind of in my way. It was more disruptive and annoying than it was anything. It wasn't even annoying. It was just marks on a board. And in order for me to present a cogent lecture, I needed to remove it. So we saw a lot of instances of escape, a lot of instances of avoidance as well in prevention and so on in that video. Let's go through a few of those, okay? So the first thing we talked about was the exercise itself of sanding a piece of wood involves removal of things, removal of wood material to smooth it. So we're acting on our world and we're changing it by removing something. And as the wood gets smoother, we do it to a particular point. I removed the tools that were in the way. That was an escape response. I took the tools that were on the counter and put them away. I vacuumed. Remember, I vacuumed, and that was a way to remove the material that was in my way. I also swept some of the sawdust onto the floor. That's another instance of escape, or removing something that would make it more likely that's the consequence. All right. I put on earmuffs to remove the loud noise, but we could also think of earmuffs as avoidance as well. I mean, if I did it before, it was probably be called avoidance if I put on earmuffs before. I did things like brush off my shirt, my Band of Horses shirt. I also, but then I put on a work shirt to prevent or avoid my Band of Horses shirt from getting dirty. Okay? I pulled out a splinter, but then I put work gloves on to prevent getting another splinter. I used saline solution to get dust out of my eye, but then I put on glasses to prevent that from happening in the future. So all of these are instances of. I also used the clamp, right? The clamp was avoiding me from the board coming off the paper. So just a ton of circumstances and situations that you know were illustrated. Negative reinforcement was illustrated in there. The last thing I want to talk about is negative reinforcement of everyday behavior. I mean, behavior that in items and instances and things that we go around and walk around the world every day, and we don't really give them full credit for what they're doing, how they're impacting our lives behaviorally, and so on, and the consequences that they provide for us. So when I said on the prep guide, I think I asked a question, you know, I would argue that negative reinforcement is more important than positive reinforcement, because if we weren't sensitive to some of these things, they'd be really give us a lot of trouble. We saw some everyday things, right? Even in the example in the video of the sanding, we saw saline solution. Saline removes things from contacts and from eyes to and the operative consequence is the removal of this thing. And then in the future we're more likely to do it in the future. I have a bag of negative reinforcers here that I'd like to share with you. Some of them maybe you never thought about. I think this might be one of the most important negative reinforcers in civilization. Toilet paper. What does it do? What consequence does it provide? It removes things for us, right? It takes stuff away that we don't want. Now, we could probably talk about the aversive stimuli that toilet paper removes, but this might be one of the more important negative reinforcers in our world, in our days. Here's another negative reinforcer. Everybody, hey, you know what that is, right? That's toothpaste. Removes odors, removes foods, removes stains, and so on and so forth. Ever have a sunburn? You don't put this on because you want to smell good or because it's nice. You want to remove the pain of a sunburn. We use aloe vera to treat sunburns. Don't smell too good. Yeah, we want to remove the smell. Yeah, this is suave, powder, flavor, smell, or whatever. There's another negative reinforcer. The most important invention of the 20th century. Ibuprofen. It's the magical drug. Can you see that? The lighting's not very good, is it? Let me put it over here. Okay? Ibuprofen tablets. These remove headaches. They remove pain. They actually do remove something. They remove swelling in joints and so on. Critical. Critical. Got some indigestion, you want to remove it? Take a Tums. You're wet? Hey, this is something that helps you remove water from your body. It is a negative reinforcer. Can't do dishes without one of these, right? Get all those food particles off the plates and trays and so on. This will really help you with removing things. Ever get stuff stuck in your teeth and you need a little bit of help? Dental floss is a negative reinforcer as far as I'm concerned. Got a broken nail? Got a long nail that's getting hung up on everything? You just clip it off with a little set of clippers, right? Negative reinforcement, removing something. This one may be, maybe not suitable for mixed company, but this is a negative reinforcer. It is. Okay. Why isn't this a negative reinforcer? It could be a negative reinforcer if you're on fire and it puts out the fire. But this is not a negative reinforcer. It's not a negative reinforcer because it removes thirst. Thirst, as far as I'm concerned, is an intervening variable. We're not talking about removing thirst. We're talking about adding something when we drink a bottle of water. If we're adding something, then we're not, we might be removing some state of whatever, but we don't think of this as a negative reinforcer. We think of this as a positive reinforcer. We're not removing, we're removing a hypothetical, which is not really clear and not well understood, I don't think, enough to say that this would be an instance of negative reinforcement. This is not an instance of negative reinforcement either. This is a positive reinforcer. All right, we're not removing hunger by eating this Clif Bar, this chocolate brownie Clif Bar, which I bet is really delicious. This is a positive reinforcer. These are positive reinforcers, not negative reinforcers. Okay? When we talk about removal, we're talking about removal of something. Okay? What does this remove? This does not remove an intervening variable. This removes poop and pee and snot if you use it to blow your nose. This removes swelling from your joints. This removes excess acid from your stomach. This removes nasty particles from your teeth. This adds liquid to your body. That's why it's a positive reinforcer and not a negative reinforcer. Hopefully, we're done with this. We don't have to talk anymore about positive and negative reinforcement. Goodbye.